Наверное, кто-то из вас, кто вчера был уже на его докладе, знают, это CEO компании XBO Soft US. Вот. И сегодня будет мастер-класс на тему, как улучшить ваш UX, mobile UX, то есть how to improve your mobile user experience. Вот. Мастер-класс будет около 1,5 часов, поэтому готовимся, встречаем Филиппа. Welcome, Филипп.
That was my President Obama imitation. I won't show you my President Trump imitation. Okay. Let's see. Well, today we're going to learn about improving the mobile user experience. Who was in my session yesterday? Or a couple of you. Okay, good. So you came back. Interesting. All right, so I won't go over there's one thing I talked about yesterday was, I talked about McDonald's and making pancakes, right? But this job experience here, I talk about a little bit more. I told you that this is in a shopping mall, right? And it was candy. Actually, this is fruits and nuts, dried fruits and dried nuts. And so I worked in the middle of the shopping mall, and I would scream out into the shopping mall, "Would you like to try a banana chip?" How many of you like banana chips? Okay, good. Now, banana chips are very cheap. Banana chips were $1.49 for a half a pound. We always say by half a pound because it sounds cheaper, right? $1.49 for half a pound of banana chips. And I would say, "Would you like to try a banana chip?" And they would come in and they would try the banana chips. And of course, next to the banana chips, we had the cashews. And on the other side, we have the pistachios. And the pistachios and the cashews are, of course, much more expensive than the banana chips, right? And so our goal was to lure the customer in with the banana chips and get them to buy the cashews. And I was the #1 salesman for cashews. And so that was really my first learnings of user experience and usability, right? Because when we design our mobile app, when we design an application where the customer is coming into our application and we want them to do something, right? In my case, it was buying cashews. Maybe in your case, you guys have a mobile application. What are you trying to have your users do?
SaaS recruiting system.
Okay, recruiting system.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so you all have your users come into your store and you want them to do something, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We won't talk about banana chips, but we'll talk about some other things. Yeah, and then I decided after selling banana chips, I wanted to go to college because I didn't want to sell banana chips for the rest of my life. And then I started this little company here, and we do user experience and usability testing. And here I am today. So somehow I got from banana chips to talking to you guys, and I feel very fortunate to be here, and thank you for inviting me. Let's see. This is the boring stuff here. You can find me on LinkedIn. But really love to do is I like to ride a bike. And anybody here do a lot of cycling? Oh, okay, great. Yeah. So, and I put this picture up here. This is an old picture of me, maybe 50 years ago. I put this picture up here because I really believe that designing a mobile app, now you're competing against many companies. Just like I'm here competing against all these guys. And how are you competing? What do you think are the things that make you different? What do you think are the things that are going to help me to win? What are the things that are going to help you to win? Anybody have any ideas? What will help you to win against your competitors with your mobile app?
Speed up.
Say again?
Speed up.
Speed. Okay, that's important. Speed.
Better promotion.
Say again?
Better promotion.
Promotion.
Yeah.
Okay. So, intuitive design, right. Good. So there's many things that you need to think about in order to make your application more competitive. And your competitors are all around you. They're watching you, and you should be watching them. Anybody know this guy here? Yeah. I had a discussion with Jeremy the other night about how we live into our expectations, right? 50 years ago, we thought this was a dream. It was so silly, right? But now we have it. And this is where mobile has come. I bought one of those first $2,000 mobile phones that came in a big case like this. Anybody anybody seen one of those? You're too young for that, right? Okay. And now we have the iPhone. And what I think is that we're about to embark on what I call the Cambrian era for mobile. Does anybody know what happened in the Cambrian era? What happened in the Cambrian era? Why was there an explosion of life? Anybody know?
Probably they came out of the water, but I'm not sure.
Very close. In the Cambrian era, that's when organisms developed the ability to see. So what happens when you can develop the ability to see? That means other people can see you, and they're going to eat you, so you want to run away, right? So that leads to a lot of explosion of different life forms, of animals trying to see and eat other animals, and other animals trying to get away, right? And that's why sight is so important as one of our primary senses. And we'll come back to that as we go through the class today about sight and different elements of vision that are important in the mobile user experience. So the question is to be or not to be. And I really believe that in developing your mobile application, you can succeed or you'll just fail miserably. So this is how it all fits together. You know, when I put together this class, first of all, this is a a whole day class, and I had to compress it from 8 hours to 2 hours. So there's many things that fit all together today because they're all combined, right? So we have machine-to-machine learning. I heard somebody talk about IoT earlier today. Because of that, there's big data, because all these things are creating data, right? And all data must have context in order to mean something. And then because of all this context, we have all these security and privacy issues. And because of all this security and privacy issues, we also have connectedness and expanding our privacy and not expanding our privacy. And all this really is brought together into the mobile device. So here's what we're talking about today. First of all, we're going to cover what is the difference between usability and user experience. Anybody have any idea? Any brave people want to answer the question? What is the difference between usability and user experience? Okay, that's good. That's a good start. So usability is really the things that we think of typically: clicking, finding a button, 2 clicks, 3 clicks, things like that, right? Okay. That's part of user experience as well. So user experience is really the feelings that are generated from usability. So what happens if you use a product or use an app and it's very, very difficult to use, or it takes a long time to use, or you get a lot of error message? What is your feeling with that? That's the user experience. If you have bad usability, you're naturally going to have a bad user experience, but you can also have good usability sometimes and have a bad experience. So you notice some color codes here. Blue means important. Green means, what does green usually mean? Green usually means go, right? That means there's going to be a lot of interaction. When you see green, that means I'm going to be asking you a question. Okay? And it means hands-on experience, exercises, interaction. So if you're in the back of the room and you're hiding, I may walk to the back of the room and that will become the front of the room. Okay. I always like to create expectations because when you create expectations, then you can surpass expectations, right? So the expectation is, I will not read the slides. There's a lot of stuff here, and you can see this later, right? I'm going to cover some of the most important things on the slides, and then we'll do some exercises, but I won't read the slides, okay? So you can read them later. It's going to be very interactive. You see that's green there. Lots of exercises. What does it mean to be all in?
Don't be afraid to risk.
Yeah, go 100% because you'll get out of the class what you put in. Okay. And the reason I believe that is, anybody seen this before? The cone of learning. The cone of learning, if you see here, after 2 weeks, we tend to remember only 10% of what we read and 20% of what we hear. Have you ever been in a lecture before where 10 minutes later say, what did that guy say? You forgot already, right? And so that's why I want to get you guys involved in the class, because of the cone of learning. I really believe that if you're going to walk away from here and learn something, you're going to participate. So let's talk about usability and importance. I won't talk too much about this. I did set the expectation that I wasn't going to read the slides, right? So the reason that usability and user experience has become really important is because it's become very competitive, right? So there's something about these things that have changed. So we have a subscription economy, we have mobile phones. What has really changed? Why is user experience so important now? Well, it's important now because of the subscription economy. Before, you used to buy Microsoft Office in a little box. You go to the store, right? And you take it home, and it costs about $400. And if you didn't like it, well, you already paid $400, right? Too bad. Now, you pay $10 a month, and you say, oh, I don't like it. You get something else, right? That's why things are so much more competitive now, because the business model has changed. We can change any time. We pay $10 this month, say, oh, I think I changed my mind. I don't like it. That's why user experience has become so important. Users, what do they do with their mobile? I do a little poll here. How many people here have everybody has one smartphone, right? Everybody have a smartphone? Raise your hands if you have a smartphone. Okay. This is part of the first exercise, participation. Okay. How many people here have 2 smartphones? Okay, almost like 1/3 of people have 2. That's amazing. How many people here have, I'll go straight to D. How many people here have 2 tablets? 2 tablets. Okay, quite a few people. How about 1 wearable? Anybody who has 1 wearable? Okay, wearables have become popular too. 2 wearables. How many of you have 2 wearables? Okay. All right. So the next thing that's important to learn is about context and tasks. So what is the definition of context? What do you guys think is context? Anybody have any ideas? It's not green, but I'm asking a question. So what is context in terms of a mobile task? Okay, I'm going to move over here. I'm going to start asking questions over here. So what do you think is important in terms of context of a mobile task? Well, context means environment, right? So where you are, that's important, right? So what are the components of where you are? So is there a difference in executing a task if you're on a train, if you're outside, if you're in a factory? If you're in a factory, sometimes maybe not so light, right? If you're outside, it's really bright, maybe you can't see too well. Many different components that are part of context. What else would be part of context? Say again? Size of the device, yeah? Okay. How about who you're around? Right? Say again? Internet connection? Yeah, all of these things are part of context. So context, what you're doing, where you're at, the time, whether or not you're in the middle of a conversation, right? All of these things are part of context. And when you design your application, when you evaluate the usability and the user experience of the application, you have to think about what is the person doing? Where are they? Who are they around? What else are they doing on their phone? And now we have something called the social context. So why do people want to share these things? You know, we're all going like this, especially Americans, going like this, and we're sharing, oh, I checked in here, I'm with so-and-so, I'm happy, right? You see that on Facebook. Why do people want to share this stuff? What's that? Become popular. Okay. That's it. We want to be connected to each other. Even though we're separate, we want to be connected. And so there's all of this data. All this data is what is created from the context of our conversations, context of what we're doing, and all this is important, an important element of the user experience. Many sensors collecting data. That's a problem now, isn't it? We all know where you are all the time. Okay. So here's just some more elements of different kinds of sensors that are collecting data. And as a developer, as a tester, we have to think about all the data that's coming from here and whether or not it's useful or not in the application. Remember I said I wasn't going to read everything? Yeah, so how do we test all of this, right? There's so many things to test. So many things to test. Context enables anticipation. That's really important. I talked about that yesterday in terms of providing good service, right? So what kinds of context would enable you to anticipate what the user would do? Say again? Expectation, right? So the easiest one is location, right? So if you know where the user is, you can provide them with certain things in your application based on where they are. What other parts of the context can you use to predict what the user will want to do? Time of the day, right. So maybe if your application has to do with restaurants, maybe if it's at 11:30, you might present a bunch of places that are around them that have good lunch, right? You certainly would not put up restaurants that only open at 5 p.m. And anticipation is more than just selling things, right? Okay. So here are some tasks that are good for mobile. I remember one of you I was talking to earlier was saying that they were converting a web application to a mobile application. So it's important to remember that we don't want to convert everything, okay? So here are some tasks that are good for mobile. Things that have a deadline, right? Things that have rapidly changing information like the weather. Train schedules, rapidly changing information. Here are some things that are not good for mobile. So whenever you have to consume lots of information because of the size of the device, you don't want to have a real complicated multi-step process because what? Because when we're out using our mobile phones, maybe we get distracted. Oh, a call came in and you forgot what you were doing. Anybody have that happen before you forgot what you were doing, right? So whenever you have a task that has many, many steps, not good for mobile. So what does this mean? In terms of, for instance, a banking application. For a banking application, maybe you might have a user use the account, but to actually start up an account on a mobile phone, there's so much information that's needed, it's not a good task for a mobile phone. Task prioritization is very important. So what do you think, this example on Walgreens, what do you think they think is the most important task? What's that? The most important task for Walgreens is pharmacy, the upper left. That's because that's most likely where they make lots of money, right? What I think is interesting in terms of this one on the right, in terms of the priority there, they have warehouse offers on the top and online offers. Why do you think that is? Why would they put those things to be prioritized over the bottom ones? They've obviously thought through this very carefully. Say again? So they're designing this for somebody that's in the store. Okay, things they want to sell right there. Okay. Good. So when you think about your own application, right, think about the things that you want users to do, like buy banana chips or cashews, things that you want them to do, and the priority of the order that's the most important for you and for them. Right, so here's an exercise that's green, right? So what I'd like you to do, remember I said this is going to be, work on some real things. I'd like you to break up into small groups, could be 2 people, could be 5 people, and I'd like you to develop a list of 5 tasks that you use your mobile phone for and rank them in terms of priority. Ready? I'll give you 5 minutes. Ready? Go. This is a workshop, remember, right? They call this a workshop? Okay. So you guys going to work together? Okay.
For example, he has Android and I have iOS.
Oh, you could be together. It's okay. Some people don't like to participate. Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
You can force it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, 3 more minutes. Are you guys done?
Yeah, we're done.
Okay. Okay, you can stop checking your email now. You can stop checking your email now. Oh, okay. All right, let's have a couple groups go over their list, and I'm wondering, what I'm wondering is if the list is different for some of you. So who wants to share their list first? You guys want to share your list? Your top 5 in order of priority.
Yeah, the first one is social media and messengers.
Social media, okay.
The second one is calls. The third one is camera, so like photos. And the fourth is banking. And the fifth is alarm.
Okay, good. Thank you. Great. Anybody else want to share their list?
The first one is communications. We mean it's call and messages.
Calling and messaging you put together, okay.
Second one, space and time orientation. This means geography and time.
Geography and time,
In time and space.
okay.
Social networking. News is the third one. The fourth, news and internet. And the
Oh.
fifth is sum of that and games.
Okay, good. And so it's for you two guys, right? You guys work together?
We have different priority.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. How about you guys? What did you come up with, Jeremy?
So we have communication and social media, social networks as well, buying things and paying,
Buying and paying? Uh-huh.
clock and alarm as well, navigation and reading.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, one more group.
So our 5 points are visual communication.
Uh-huh.
This includes messages, calls. The second one is searching some information.
Uh-huh.
The third one is entertainment. Fourth is navigation, and fifth is social activity.
Okay, good, good. So what I wanted you to think about here was that there's a difference in women and men using the application, right? We have different priorities in what we use the mobile phone for. So that's something you should think about in terms of your apps and the development of your apps. Who are your users? That's something for you to think about. Who are the primary users of your app, right? So I noticed that my father, getting old, he can't move his fingers as well, right? And he, moving things around. So if your application is designed for elderly people, obviously you need to have different design of buttons than for younger people. So the purpose of this was for you to think about, okay, well, these people use it like this group uses it like this people have more women, these people have men, right? Think about that when you start designing and evaluating your application. One of the things that's important to think about, and this is what we think about typically in usability, is task ease, right? Removing friction. We want to remove friction. So what kinds of things would cause friction in a task? Everybody understand what I mean by friction? Cause resistance. What kinds of things cause resistance in a user accomplishing something? Say again? Too many steps. That's one. What else? Slow performance, right? Bad design. I talked about my father, right? What's that?
Complicated design.
Complicated, right? Maybe you can't see very well. The contrast. What's that? Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I want you to think about now is that the majority of an app's value is provided by a very small number of tasks. So one of you guys was talking about converting their web app to a mobile app. And I've worked with some people before, some customers, some clients, where they're converting and they say, okay, how are we gonna change over to the mobile app? What are we gonna put on the mobile app? And some of them just say, well, we're just gonna convert it over and just change the buttons around a little bit, right? But what you wanna do is think about what should be different on the mobile app versus the web app? What kinds of context? Where is a person going to be in using the mobile app versus on the web app in their office? What will they be doing differently? Who will they be with? Where will they be? Those kinds of things really need to think about, right? There's something called task concordance that I want you, this is really, really important. So I made a mistake here. I should have put that in blue. Task concordance has to do with the frequency of the task and the difficulty of accomplishing the task. So if a task is very, very frequent, you should try to make it as easy as possible, as less steps as possible. So this all goes into your thinking about the tasks that a user is going to do with your mobile app. So what would be the top 3 things that your user would do with your, who's developing a mobile app here, or who tests a mobile app? Okay. So what would be the top 3 things that a user will do?
They will find some shop from the list,
Find a shop?
go in there and buy something.
Okay. Find a shop, go in there and buy something. Okay. Anybody else? What would be the top 3 things that a user would do with your app? See and click. Okay. Well, okay. So here's an email task example. When you're listing out tasks, I want you to start thinking about your application in terms of tasks. What is a user trying to do? What are they going to do with your app? So here's an example with email, right? These are tasks. Replying to a message, create and send a new message, right? Open an email and read new messages. So whenever you start looking at mobile apps now, I want you to start thinking about tasks. What are people trying to do? So we're not talking about, how fancy the buttons are or what nice images, even though that's important too. I want you to really think about tasks, right? So here's an example of tasks for email. Now look at this very carefully because you're going to have to do it too. Okay, so here's an example for Amazon tasks, right? Find a book, the last book you read. You can think of these in terms of, from testing point of view, as user stories, right? Add gift wrapping, find some books, remove a book from your shopping cart, things like that. These are typical tasks. And what I could do is I could prioritize them, right? If I was using it on my own app. Okay. So who here downloaded the conference app? You guys download the conference app? Okay. What I'd like you to do is look at the conference app or an airline app, one of the two, and list the 5 top things that a user would do in the conference app. List the 5 top things you do in the airline app if you don't have the conference app, and prioritize according to different user types, and rate those tasks in terms of difficulty. Okay? Give you 6 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay, 2 more minutes. One more minute. Are you learning something? Are you learning anything?
No, больше сейчас скажу. Я какая-то собачка. I don't understand what you say because I not very, no. Я перевожу, translate.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, let's see. See some of you guys, see what you came up with. I hope you guys are learning something because you can apply this directly to your own app. Okay, how about you guys? Did you evaluate the conference app or airline app? Your own. Okay. That's all right. How about you guys? What did you evaluate? The conference app?
Yeah.
Okay, so what were the top things that a user would do in the prioritization of those?
Authentication, and after that, forgot password functionality. Yeah.
Okay. Authentication.
Yeah, just sign up, and after that, right after that, it's like forgot password functionality because we have a password there, and no one just knows what is the password from our group. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's really important. I mean, I would bet that a lot of people had that problem.
Probably.
Okay. Next group.
Regarding sign up, I think that people do it once and they just stay logged in the application, and it's not the so often thing to do. So that's why we have 2 groups of users for airline app. And the first group is for those who are going for vacation. It's find a trip, check available miles, book a flight, check the terminal maps, and check the status of flight. And the second group is for those who already landed. So the first one is to track a baggage, to check the map, and then check miles, how many miles they got from the last flight, and check maybe the next flight they have, and maybe they want to find another trip to another place.
Okay, interesting. All right, you.
It's again, it all depends on the context. So.
Right.
We divide it on 3 group of users. The first one is participants, the second one is speakers, and third one is staff.
Okay.
So the participant importance, we divide it on 5 tasks or 5, functionalities. The first one, most important for participants, is locations. So to know where to go, firstly. Then schedule, where to go, who will be the speaker. The third one is the speakers, people. Section, 4 is vacancies, and the last one is streams to communicate with other people on the conference. For the speakers, it's another importance. The first one is locations, of course, then the streams. It's actually, for me, it's important to write with the people and to say okay, I will be a speaker on this stream or something like that. After that, schedule, then speakers, and the last one is vacancies.
Okay.
And for the staff, the first one, I think, it's streams to communicate with people. For example, something happened, people write down in the chats about it, and they have to control it. The next one, speakers. The third one, schedule, locations, and the last one, vacancies.
Okay, good, good. So one more group. One more group. You guys.
Well, we actually also investigated conference app and have very similar findings.
Okay.
We worked on 2 groups, but also had 3. Just the first one is attendees. We believe that the first task is checking agenda as general. The second is check overview of the report to understand whether it will be interesting for you or not. The third one is switching between streams. And we've discovered that it works differently on iOS and Android app, where iOS application works, has a better UX. The fourth is to see speaker's bio and information about the speaker. And the last is using search for any reasons.
Okay, good.
And in terms of speaker, we've separated the following top 5. The first one is agenda, of course, the general agenda. The second one is searching feature to check your own timing to make sure you don't miss it. The third one is you can check what is written about you as a speaker in the app. Make sure that everything is correct.
Okay.
And the fourth is speaker can use chat with visitors, for example.
Okay.
That's it for now.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. That's very interesting. I think that what did you learn from this exercise? Right. So each type of user has a different priority tasks, right? And something else that came out was the difference on the platforms. You said that iOS was a little bit easier to use than Android. So the concept I want to give you here is that usability design has an effect, and this effect has an experience. So what kinds of things would go into design? Well, like the size of a button, maybe, the color of a button, the location of a button. Those are different design things, right? And what kind of effect would the design have on what we do? Well, if a button is too small, then maybe we make a lot of mistakes because we can't touch it very well, right? So the effect would be either I get a task done or I don't, or I make mistakes or I don't, right? That's the effect. And based on that effect, we have an experience. We're happy, we like the app, things like that. So what we do as testers, and the reason I present this workshop in a testing conference is because if you work for a really huge company, then they have specialists that do UX and usability. But if you work for a small to medium-sized company, you don't. And a lot of us do work for small to medium-sized companies. We don't have some person that's a specialist in UX, right? So that's up to us to really test for that and find those things. So these things here I've talked about before, right? About in terms of what functions will a user really use? Is this a conversion of an existing app? You really have to think about the critical tasks that somebody's going to do. One of the things these are 3 challenges that we have with mobile apps, right? We have distractions. So that's why long tasks are no good. We have context. So we have many different kinds of context that we have to consider. Where they are, what they're doing, who's around them, things like that. And we also have the small screen size. Yeah, so I wonder if he uses his mobile app when he's hurdling or not. So one of the critical things, these are many things that are involved in usability design. One of the critical things is learnability. So I'd like to touch on that a little bit. In the full day class, we'll talk about all these things, but I'm going to talk about what I think is one of the most important ones is learnability. So in terms of learnability, have you ever downloaded an app and tried to use it and you got frustrated and you just deleted it? Right? That's what we do. If you cannot figure out how to use an application very, very quickly, you're just going to get rid of it. So you have to make sure that your app is not one of those, right? Let me skip over this. I'm going to skip. I did say I wasn't going to read the slides, right? Okay. This is what I was talking about. This is kind of a summary in words of what we've learned today so far, right? We have specified users. We had the attendees versus the speakers, right? Specified users, so we have to think carefully about what the users are, what they're doing, who they are. We have specified goals, right? So a speaker may be trying to chat with other speakers, or he may be trying to find his room or something like that. An attendee may try to look at their schedule, right? And then we have a specified context of use. So we haven't talked about that too much, but we will. Okay. So the primary thing I want you to think about is we want to design and test for the top tasks. That's why I've been spending so much time on this, because you want to think about those top 5 things that your app is used for, right? Think about the top 5 things and really do well at those things. So this is just more examples of a task, and I put this here because people like ourselves, like myself, I work in a small company, or I help small companies. It's up to us to do these kind of things because we don't have a usability expert. I talked about trust yesterday, and I'm going to talk about it here a little bit. User experience and trust, and user experience and trust is not really just about the efficiency of the application and how quick it helps you to do this and do that. It's really about other things too. And I think that trust is really is going to be a bigger and bigger component in the success of an application. And we see that already today with the Facebook big thing, right? So what kind of data do you think these guys are collecting that could be used against us? Location? Paying, bank account, all of these things. So when we're designing these apps and we're interfacing with the user, how do we develop trust in the user? They know that we have all this information. How do we develop trust in the user so that they will continue to use the app and trust us? What's that?
Confidential policies.
Confidential policies, right? That's good. Anybody else? Okay. So it's the way that our application interfaces and works with the user that creates that trust. So let's go through some examples. You guys don't have this, but this is Kaiser Permanente. It's a healthcare application for health, right? And what I noticed was that they had my entire username there. And I thought to myself, that's not good. If somebody found my phone, they'd see my entire username, and maybe they could guess my password. On the other hand, in Fidelity, which is a financial application, they didn't display my whole username. They only gave part of my username. So this made me feel good. Okay, these guys are really looking out for me, right? So the way that you design your application creates that trust from a user point of view. Both of them give the option to remember the user ID or not. I thought that's good. Giving an option. Give the option is good. Okay. Here's another way to create trust. I believe that we should have very short disclosures about our policies. Who reads some really huge, long sentence? A bunch of stuff, right? You don't read that at all. So if you're talking to somebody and they're really, really complicated and they speak with really, really big words, do you trust them? Maybe not. If they speak simply and directly, you trust them more, right? And that's the way people feel about our applications as well. So you don't want to have some big policy that nobody's going to read. Here's another way of creating trust, is asking. You have to ask for permission. That's important. I hate it when I get notifications or I sense that they're using my location when I didn't give permission. Anybody have that experience? Right? When, somehow, oh, how do they know this, right? Here's another way of generating that trust. Notification. They don't have to do this. They don't have to tell me that. They could just log me out. But they let me know this. They notify me because they want to create that trust between me and the application, right? They don't have to do that. Acknowledgement is a way of creating trust. If you have a friend that comes to you and says, sorry, I made a mistake, and says they acknowledge that they made a mistake, that develops a relationship between you and your friend, right? And the same thing with an application. Sorry, I'm having problems, come back to me later. Rather than just having a little thing going around and around and around like that, right? Waiting. So we talked about context. So obviously these guys are looking at kinds of things that I buy. They see that I buy inner tubes and goggles and things like that. So this is ways for you can use the context of your user to present what's available to them next, right? We want to use it. First we want to generate the trust, and then we want to anticipate what the user is going to do. Right? And provide, it could be recommendations, it could be what is the next step. For instance, you see many travel apps. What do they do in a travel app? If you book an airline, what do they do next? They present you with a hotel. Would you like to book a hotel too? Right? So this is about creating satisfaction. Anybody seen this commercial before? No? This is a commercial for ketchup. And when you hold the bottle upside down, it's really, really slow. But anyways, that's kind of an American joke. I won't talk about it too much. It's important to anticipate and remind, but don't nag. Okay? So this is this is really interesting here. They're trying to, every time I changed the screen, the same thing came up about going to Better Software East. And to me, that was bothering. That was nagging. Anybody know what nag means? Nag means to bother. Nag means to bother and be a pest. So when we're anticipating things of our user, what they're going to do, we don't want to be a pest. Okay. So what we learned so far? We learned a little bit about usability. We learned some design considerations. Next, we're going to learn about some special consideration for mobile devices, integrating and evaluation and testing criteria. Let's see, I won't talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. I won't talk about that. Okay, so here's something here. So in terms of integration, how many people here have thought about when a user accesses your application on the website and the mobile and you have both? How do they integrate together? Who here has both? Right, so how does your user go from one to the other, back and forth?
It depends where the user are. If he has a desktop, he used a website, or if he on the way home or something like that, he hasn't access to his PC or laptop, he used mobile app. We check it through our analytics that they use it so when they use it on the working time or in the evening.
Oh, interesting. So you're watching about what time they use the application as well. Very, very interesting. Anybody else? Okay. So integration is not just across platforms, but across user scenarios. So who here uses Netflix? Anybody here use Netflix? Okay. I really love the way that they integrate across platforms. So, and they integrate a task in Netflix is watching a movie, right? That's a task. I want to watch a movie. So in Netflix, what do they do to make your experience smooth across platforms? Well, if you're watching Netflix on your TV and you stop watching the movie, and then you get on the airplane and you want to watch it on your iPad, it goes right to the place where you stop watching the movie, right? So you need to think about that for your user when they're trying to execute. Let's suppose that the conference app was used here and also at home. What would be the difference? Now we're going to get into some usability stuff, and we talked about how usability affects user experience. Typing and input is really, really critical for a mobile app. Why is that? Because it's so small. It's so small. We want to minimize the typing, right? So let's talk about some ways to minimize the typing. We're going to talk about the different ways that we evaluate typing. Sounds kind of silly, I know. But who likes to type? Nobody, right? We want to reduce the cost of typing. I call it the cost of typing. So first thing we want to do is we want to make the typing mistake tolerant, right? We want to make it so that the user can make mistakes and it will correct the mistakes. What else do we want to do? We want to make sure that there's defaults provided. This minimizes the typing. You don't have to type stuff in, right? This is really, really hard. We want to allow the user to delete defaults. You know, what's really painful is when you have to go like this and press the delete key to go over, right? That's painful. We want to provide computed values. So what would be a computed value? What's that? Say again? Suggestions, right? Say again? Type ahead, yeah. We want to also provide widgets so that they don't have to type. So here's widgets. So they have these buttons here to avoid typing. And one of the things I noticed about the United application, which is very interesting, they prioritize those 5 tasks. There were 5 tasks that they thought that was really important, and you guys, some of you guys that use the airline app saw these also. Book a flight, flight status, airport map, check-in, and one of you guys said about you seeing how many miles you got, right? My account. And then the other tasks, they wanted to provide you that capability to access them, so they use that more, right? But the top 5 are right there for you to get to very easily. One of the other things that's really good for this app is that all of the buttons are the same size and they're all equally distant from each other. Lists and scrolling. are ways to avoid typing, right? So having a list of common things, you can go like this instead of typing stuff in, right? Lists and scrolling are really important to have. Carousels are another way to avoid typing, right? Just kind of going like this. Much easier than typing stuff in. Provide the choices that they might have. This way they don't have no typing. What other ways are some ways that we can avoid typing? Okay, now we have voice. Good. Searching is another important thing on mobile apps, right? So we want to make it easy for people to search for things. I think one of you guys was using the search function in the conference app. Who used the search function in the conference app? I think one of you guys brought that up. You did. And what were you searching for? Okay. So search for somebody by name. So what's important to think about in the searching is that searching is kind of takes a little bit of time. So we want to make searching as quick as possible. So one of the things, well, that's a good point. If you have a carousel with too many choices, then you're going like this, right? And typing is better. Sure. Well, you have to think about the particular use case and what they're searching for. The other thing we need to think about when we're searching is what if you can't find it, right? What kind of message do we give the user? Okay? So one of the things I hate about searching for something is if I get it just a little bit wrong, they don't give me another suggestion. So in this example, I was searching for Autodesk, right? And I put in SSK instead of DSK, and it came back with a mistake. They should just give me the ones that start with auto, right? So if you're searching for a speaker, for instance, and you type in a little bit wrong, it should come up with all the people with those, something close. So when you evaluate an application, and you're thinking about these kind of things, you think, okay, how do they implement search? And these are the criteria I'm looking for. You think about, okay, does it help me complete something? Does it give me the right error? Does it give me something if I get no results, right? Navigation is important as well. This is one of the common things, right? So one of the things that you'll notice is that there's always a function bar at the bottom now. This has become a de facto standard, right? Everybody notice this in mobile apps? A lot of times you have a search bar at the a function bar at the bottom. Why is this important? It's easy to access. What else?
It's always visible.
Always visible? Who uses Windows? You guys use Windows? No? Never. Okay. So one of the things about Windows, when we started using it, we've been using Windows for many years, is we always know that file is on the upper left-hand side. And we always know how to close something. So although Windows is not a standard, everybody knows how to do it, and everybody knows where that is. So that's why this is important. When you're designing your mobile app, everybody does this now, so why would, even if you think it's better to have it on the top or over to the right or something like that, unless you have a compelling reason to put functions someplace else, put it in a de facto position. Right? we want to minimize the required clicks for anything that we're doing. So we're trying to compress tasks, right? So these guys, Yelp, have thought about the 9 top things people are going to do, and they put them right there. They compress the tasks into these simple buttons. Swiping. We want to let a user know what they can do and what they can't do. So you notice that in this example, they say you can do this, do this, do this, right? Here's another example. These guys show them what they can do, right? So in terms of navigation, the reason I present these charts is because I want you to start thinking about the criteria. When you evaluate an application and you test an app, what am I going to do here? So this is where we start getting up. I know it's hard. So groupings, people are visual. So I talked about this before with the Cambrian area and visibility, thinking, seeing, right? Things that are close together are believed to go together. People pay attention to shapes, colors, and sizes. So let's look at this here. Forms driving behavior. Remember we talked about the banana chips. So what's the difference between the left and the right, right? So on the left side, they're saying this is required. On the right side, they're saying this is optional. So required is kind of a bad feeling. Optional is a good feeling. So these two things create two different experiences, don't they? And they also give the option for people to give more information. They don't feel bad about it. This creates a different experience, right? So which one do you think is best? Who votes for the one on the left? If you vote on the one on the left, who likes the one on the left? Who thinks the one on the left is better? Not too many. 6 people. Okay. Yeah, the one on the right is better. Colors. Colors are very, very important. You wouldn't think so, but they are. And this is why I talked about the Cambrian area. It's a method of survival. Recognition of color is survival. It's one of our primary senses. So when you look at an app and you look at the color of the app, after I know this, I look at the color of the app and say, I understand what they're trying to do, right? So there's natural association of colors. Natural association of colors. So, let me ask a couple of you. What is your favorite color? What is your favorite color?
Red.
Why?
It's bright.
It's bright.
Yeah. It makes a statement.
Okay. All right. How about, what is your favorite color? Green. Okay. And what does green mean to you? Color of your... Okay. Colors mean different things. There's something called color psychology. So if you like a particular color, maybe there's a reason why. So I was showing the Fidelity app, which is a banking application. So there's a reason that Fidelity is green. There's a reason that the Yelp application is red. There's reasons that companies pick colors. So when you look at all these applications and you look at their choice of colors, it's easy to see, oh, that makes sense now, right? So this is an application for Garmin. Who uses the Garmin application? Who uses Garmin? Okay. Garmin is blue and orange. So if we go back here, we look at blue and orange, okay? Blue is masculinity, confidence, cheerfulness, right? So we can see why they choose these colors. Look at all these food applications here. These are all food applications, restaurant applications. Why is it red? Well, if you go back and you look at this little chart here, because it has to do with eating, right? So the first part I wanted you to think about was the psychology of the color. The second thing I want you to think about is contrast. So when we choose colors for our app, we want people to be able to see it, right? So if we're choosing colors, a couple different colors for our app, we want to choose colors on opposite sides of the color wheel. Okay, so you can see that they chose blue and orange for Garmin because they're opposite. They provide a lot of contrast. Contrast is important so you can see different things, right? So a lot of times you see companies will choose purple and yellow or green and red, maybe violet and amber. These things on the opposite side of the color wheel so it's easy to see. Complementary colors make things stand out, make navigation easy. That's what we want, right? So here's some examples. You see, Walmart is blue and orange as well. The reason I put this up here was because images. I talked about how sight is important. But it's only important to put images if it helps you, if it helps the user. Don't put an image because it's cool, right? So is the image meaningful or not? So for instance, do you think it would be helpful to have an image of a piece of asparagus there? Only if you can really see that it's asparagus. Okay. I'm not going to have you guys do this. We're going to move on. Okay. So we talked about navigation. We talked about colors. We talked about typing. We talked about buttons. We talked about widgets. All of these things create an experience or usability. And all of these things impact whether or not a user can get something done. If things are the wrong color, what do you think will happen? Well, they can't see very well. They can't see, different buttons and sizes and things like that, right? Let's talk about understandability and usability here. Learnability. I brought this up a minute ago. If you can't figure something out in 30 seconds, you quit, don't you? I know I do. So there's two kinds of usability. One of them is, how long does it take somebody to learn how to do something, right? To use a function. I'm not going to go over this. You can cover it later. But what I want you to look at now is these different types of learnability. This is the seconds per task of the execution for new users. Which one do you think is more important? Which software do you think is better? Anybody have any ideas? Say again? B. The green one. Okay, you vote for B. All right. Anybody else? A. Okay. Okay. So what's important is this, I forgot to mention the, on the left side is number of seconds, and on the right side is the number of months over time. So the green one, you can see is faster in the beginning, but over time they don't improve as much. The other one is slower, but they improve much faster and they get better. Right? So how would this apply to your application, and what would be different for your users?
I think the first their experience is given to the user within the first task. If he manages with it faster, he will get better mood during all other tasks.
Yeah.
If he makes not so fast.
Right, so it's important in the very beginning to make something very easy for somebody. So here's some things you can do to make tasks very learnable. First of all, we want to have recognition, not memorization. We want things to be easy to recognize what to do, intuitive. We don't want people to have to remember how to do something. I always forget. We want accelerators. We want people to be able to accelerate through a task if they're expert users. We want experienced users to be able to customize things. We want tasks to only have relevant information. How many times have you looked at something and it has all this stuff on the side and it's not related to what you're trying to do, right? Actually, for mobile tasks, we want no help in documentation now because it should be simple enough so that they don't need any help, right? Okay. So what I want you to do is, what tasks in the conference app, what do you think would make it easier to learn? Why don't you guys just tell me give me some ideas. Tips. Okay, you had a tutorial. Okay, anybody else?
It should be more minimalistic because there are so many things on the screen.
It's too complicated.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
The calendar is super hard.
The calendar is super hard. Okay. Any other ideas? The color. What was the colors? Color accents. Okay. So was it hard to see the buttons?
No, but it helps the customer to recognize the workflow of some operations.
Okay. Anybody? Oh, you can add what is going on. Yeah, that's important too. You had.
What you say about using OS guides about UX? For example, Google guideline and I use human interface for mobile UX.
Oh, Google has some, and so does Apple as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for Android and for iOS.
It may be better because people learn how to use OS, so they will easily use app.
So,
Similarity to popular applications.
similar to popular applications. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go through some examples. Some good stuff and bad stuff. Okay. So here's an example So this has good navigation. They have sizes. One of you guys mentioned that for scrollers, sometimes not good to have too many. But for sizes, okay, probably not too many sizes, right? One of the things that you notice is that there's no priority in these buttons. They have add to basket and add and checkout of the same size. Here's an interesting one. They have share and buy me in the same location, and they're the same size, and they're the same color. So it's a little bit difficult to see these, especially if you're outside, right? Green on green, really bad contrast. One of you guys talked about in the conference app about showing what's going on now. So they're showing the current status that you have one thing in your cart, in your basket, right? That's good. Here's one for a reading app. So what's good about this reading app? Well, they have contrast, really good contrast. So you wouldn't want to have light blue letters on black or something like that because it's too hard to see, right? What's that? Better in the night. Okay. So here's a very simple task. So one of you guys mentioned that the conference app was too complicated. If you look at this task here, it's very, very simple. Look how big it is. They don't provide any extra stuff. For this task, the task is buying some stock, right? And they only present this information on there. There's no other information that would get you confused. So in your application that you're working on, is there other stuff on there that would get the user confused? Think about that. What things would divert a user and have them get confused? Again, you see the bar at the bottom. That's kind of the standard, right? Here's another one. You see the bar at the bottom. That's become standard. And I put this here because I think it's important that boring is okay. Boring is okay. We want the user to be able to use the thing and get something done. Boring is okay. Okay, so we as testers, where do we add value? So the first thing we learned about in the beginning today was determining the needs at hand. What are the top tasks that a person is going to do? And so we want to implement those top tasks and test for those top 5 things. If you learn only one thing today, that's what I want you to learn. We need to think about what is the mobile app trying to do. So if you're converting a web app to a mobile app, don't try to put everything on the mobile app. It should be different from the web app. And the workflow might be different. So on a web app, you may create an account, but on the mobile app, you're just using the account. So a total different workflow would be involved in the mobile app than the web app. So here are some summary points. First of all, colors. So what did you learn today about colors, choosing colors in your app? Anybody want to talk about what they learned? Well, it should be easy to see, right? So think about complementary colors. What else? What's right? Should make associations. Anybody else? Okay. Right. Okay. Let's see. Why did I put this piece of this glasses here? the sizing, and also what? About the different old people, young people, right? What about these two things? Why do you think I put these two things there? Matters what you're doing at the time. Whether you're sitting at your desk, whether you're out on a train, things like that. All these things we need to take into account. So we need to remember that we want to make it simple. We want to make navigation easy. People have short attention spans. Why is short attention spans important? Because they're going to be changing platforms. I mentioned Netflix as one. So user experience is influenced by usability. We talked about buttons, colors, things like that. And we talked about expectations, right? Creating expectations. And UX is going to be depending on feelings, anticipation, trust. We've talked about those things. So it's not just about whether or not it works or not. There's other things involved. Colors. How about red and yellow? What does red and yellow, how does that make you feel? What's that? Say again? McDonald's. Makes you hungry, huh? Okay. Don't mobilize everything. Right? So that's really, think about the tasks. What do you really need? You know, I think that when I work with some clients, they say, "Oh, we want to make it be wow. We want it to be wow." And it's not about wow. I want you to remember that. It's not about wow. It's about, there's things that we can actually do to make it usable. And that's it for today. I hope that you guys have learned something, at least, maybe 3 things. What are the 3 things that you learned today? 3 things. What's that? Okay. How about you? What are 3 things that you learned today?
Mobile app should be simple.
Simple. Colors are important.
Opposite and contrast. And the third one, I don't know. It's
Okay.
really hard.
2 things.
Yeah.
Okay, you learned 2 things. How about you guys? Did you learn 1 thing?
I learned about the difference between usability and user experience.
Okay.
That's important.
That's good. How about, did you learn 1 thing?
Yeah, the same.
All right. All right, well, thank you very much. If you have questions, I'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you, sir. And my question is about previous slide, do not mobilize everything. And here it is, yeah. And I have a site that provides some kind of service, and I was sure that I don't need mobile version. But when I included Google Analytics, I saw that more and more people use my site from mobile devices, and I need to adopt my site, and I think that almost all the sites need to be usable from mobile, from from smartphone or tablets.
Right.
And what we do not need to mobilize.
What do you not need to?
Which kind of software and
Which kind of software should not be mobilized? Well, I think it depends on the privacy and security concerns. So a lot of times we would not want to mobilize things that are very, like I said, very long tasks. It's like research. This is very hard to see for doing a research and comparison of things. Very, very difficult on a mobile device, right? So research tasks are not good for mobile. Registration, it's very difficult on mobile because of all these forms and typing.
But anyway, I have smartphone every time with me, and I use this too much time. I use my smartphone, even if it's it is not usable. I need to swipe,
Yeah.
scroll up.
Well, then you need to ensure that that you have the right buttons and scroll bars to make it easier for people, to reduce the typing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any another question?
Question over
So far.
I got a question. Sometimes when you simplify some flow for some type of users, you at the same time make it more complicated for another. Like, for example, we got an application to create video content, and like we had button to edit it, like change name of video. And we decided to add extra screen after a video is recorded, where a user can enter the new new title of
Yeah.
video, or just like tap done and use predefined name. It's like more easier for users who wanna change the name, but for users who don't care about video name, it's extra step to like complete the flow. So
yeah.
what is like the ways, maybe some your advice to make it win-win situation for all types of users?
Well, it sounds to me like, do you have a default?
Yeah, we got default name.
Okay. Well, it sounds like to me that you're doing it correctly. I mean, if you have a default and you still want to provide that option, then that's the easiest way. So, yeah. Yeah, as long as you provide a default that's erasable, easily erasable.
Yeah, but you know, it's in any case, it's one extra tap on
Yeah,
the
it is
screen,
one extra
so
step if you want to provide that option. Yeah, that's just the way it is. No, you don't want users to have to go out and come back again.
Or step by step something, doing something step by step, or just at the first step you can choose any button and go to different steps.
I'm not quite understand.
Several buttons on the first step,
Uh-huh.
or just step
Oh,
by
I see.
step to reach some goal.
I see. So are the buttons independent of each other so they could do any one and not make a mistake? Or does it have to be a sequence? They have to do one after the next.
Well, actually, the reason I know, if we will put all the buttons on the first screen, he can directly go to the page he wants from the first. There will be too many buttons. Yes, buttons navigation. Or he can choose only. He can have two buttons on the first screen, go to some other screen, and from this screen he can choose again.
I see. I see. Yeah. So that a good example of that would be the United app that I brought up, where I had the top 5 buttons that were priority, and if they want to go someplace else, they have other.
So
Minimize.
top priority buttons
Yeah.
on the first step, and then to add some
Right.
extra.
Mm-hmm.
I had another problem. If it's, for example, advertisement application, it usually has rather large form and a lot of typing, of course.
A big form.
Yeah, big form and
Yeah.
a lot of typing. And better to make it like big scroll
Uh-huh.
or to divide into several screens.
It's probably better to divide it in several screens, because if that's kind of hard to do too. Yeah.
See all the objects at once.
Right. All right.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to ask about the trust. You said about trust. And after the Facebook case, we see that all these hints, all this information is just a deception, just an illusion of security. So how should the trust, how should it be after this case? How the companies should influence the people's mind to trust the product they provide?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult one. I brought up those 5 different ways to establish trust. Yeah, I really don't know the right answer to
Yeah,
that.
but so it showed that if the Facebook has such leaks, the smaller companies have much more chances for such leaks, right?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's probably true in terms of.
So now it's a big problem for companies to assure people that their personal information won't be.
You know, there's one difference in the Facebook case is that Facebook's whole business model is selling information. That's their whole business model. So, you know, most companies are not in that business of selling your information.
But you never know what the company sells the information around.
Yeah, that's.
You never know the business model of each company. So.
That's true. That's true. I don't know the right answer other than those techniques I said about establishing trust.
Thank you.
Oh, more questions.
About your not mobilize everything. In my case, I got web application, and it has some okay, and I got 2 mobile application, and for my company, it's better way to use mobile application because it's much better in for backend, for servers. And if I not mobilize everything, I couldn't make such things that it became a trend a few years ago when you couldn't use mobile site. When you start to use mobile site, your application starts by herself. You mean when you start using mobile site force you to set up application or starting application without your suggestion, without your permission. So my stakeholders asked me to do such things that the people couldn't use site, they will use application, but after all, I should mobilize everything from site because they will have something from site.
Well, you can mobilize everything, but you can also put your top tasks more easy to get to than the other things.
Okay.
So it's not going to be exactly the way that a website is designed because a website is designed with a bar at the top and all these things are accessible like that, right?
Okay.
So it's a different design.
And as a question, you didn't say anything about Google guideline and iOS human interface. So should we use it or just could ignore it?
Yeah, because the design you showed for those apps, it's
They own UX decision, but Apple and Google provide some patterns for it, and we could just use it and be happy.
Yeah. So your question is should you follow the Google or Apple guidelines?
Yes, for different clients.
Well, I think you have to think about your competitors as well.
They make me to decide what kind of interface should I do. I decided to use Google and Apple guides, and it's working. But in some kind of problem, I should go out. Didn't use it.
Yeah, I think that Google and Apple, they provide a guide. That's just exactly what it is a guideline. But that you need to modify that depending on your users.
yeah, but they both have their own styles. So when you take iPhone and the application looks like Android application, sometimes it looks like a disaster and it looks horrible. So and you feel like you're holding an Android device, and some people just don't like it.
It is normal when Google application and Android application and iOS application looks like different for one service.
Mm-hmm.
It is normal.
That's normal. A lot of times it's very different. It's just the way it is.